Well, the Game Awards 2024 has finally ended, and I gotta say that the show was actually pretty good. We had some really good announcements, including that of The Witcher 4, Elden Ring Night Reign, an Okami sequel, among many other amazing titles. And among all of those crazy announcements, we did get a lot of Final Fantasy stuff here at the show as well, including that of Final Fantasy 16, Clive being in Tekken 8, and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth coming to PC after almost a year, right? So we got some really good stuff to talk about here today, so if you haven't already, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to keep up to date with anything JRPG. Now, first off, we have Final Fantasy XVI's Clive Rosfield joining Tekken 8's last guest character. Now, in all my years gaming, I have never seen a DLC garner just as much controversy as it did hype. It's either someone is extremely excited about it and cannot wait to see Clive join Tekken 8, or it's the complete opposite. People cannot stand the fact that there is another Final Fantasy character joining a Tekken game. Now, for any of you guys who know me and know the channel, you probably know where I stand here, and that I am pretty much just eating this up, right? And the fact that I really enjoyed Final Fantasy XVI just really adds to my excitement here. But I can also understand the other side in the fact that a lot of people wanted to see Tifa, right? It has been a character that has been requested for years. So I absolutely understand the frustration. I mean, honestly, for me, I would have loved to see either character join the game and I would have been completely fine. Whether it's Clive or Tifa, I would have just enjoyed it either way, right? Final Fantasy joining other games is always what I love to see, and here it's really no different. I mean, the gameplay for Clive looks really good, right? Like, you have, you know, all of the animations that you get from the original game, and they look really one-to-one from what you see in Final Fantasy 16. And probably, I mean, a lot of people like to, you know, say this as like a critique for Final Fantasy in that it's really flashy, right? And in Tekken 8, it's probably the most flashiest character we will probably have in the game. A lot of people do say that as a negative, but I really don't care if it's flashy. I mean, I put up with it enough in Final Fantasy 16, so it'll be no different here. But I do want to address some of the really odd criticisms and kind of controversy that I've seen go around online. The one that I've seen a lot on Twitter is, you know, having a character using a sword in a fist fighting game, right? As if pretending that we don't have sword characters in Tekken already, or pretending that fighting games don't usually add characters that use weapons into their game. We see this all the time, and I don't understand why it's suddenly a controversy with Clive Rosfield, but here we are. Now, I'm not the most versed when it comes to Tekken 8, but I do know the full roster. I mean, you had Victor, you had Raven, you had Yoshimitsu, Kunimitsu, and you had Noctis, so like, I don't understand why this is suddenly a huge controversy, but you know, we've had so many fighting games, including Tekken 8, that have characters with weapons. So, you know, that is just how it is. That's just how I see it, and I think that it's no different with Clive, right? Another funny one that I saw was that Clive isn't grounded enough and he doesn't fit into the game. First off, I think people need to understand that DLC characters are probably never going to fit, I mean, visually, compared to what you have inside the game already, right? I mean, we literally had Homelander join Mortal Kombat. I mean, visually, he doesn't look like he fits into Mortal Kombat. It's just a lot more appealing to have characters like this in a game, more than characters who just conventionally fit the game. There have always been DLC characters that have been added in fighting games, especially, that kind of look out of place, but it's just cool to see, right? And that's just the beauty of having guest characters show up in a completely different game. And when we're talking about being more grounded, this is Tekken 8. You have characters turning into devils as well as pandas and bears as literal fighters. I mean, come on, what do you mean grounded? And you know, that's really just how I see it. I think that Clive Rosfield does fit here, especially if you look at Final Fantasy 16 and its gameplay, right? It is the most fast-paced action that you will probably find in Final Fantasy as a whole, and even the way that 16 also implements its health bars is, it almost looks like a fighting game, right? And also Clive's appearance, I think, also fits with Tekken very well because he's a lot more older than what you would usually find with the Final Fantasy protagonist. You know, he's a lot more gruffier, he's an actual adult, right? He's not what you usually find in Final Fantasy, let's just put it that way. So I'm definitely excited for Clive. I'm actually going to come back to Tekken 8, which is crazy to say because I'm not really a fighting game fan like that, but here we are. So when the time comes and he finally comes out, then I'll definitely try him out. Now next up is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming to PC, and what's surprising about this is that this is coming out fairly soon on January 23rd of next year. That is crazy to say, especially for Square Enix, right? I think that over time, Square Enix has gotten progressively better and better at releasing their PC ports in a timely manner. I mean, for Final Fantasy VII Remake, it took a year and 7 months for it to finally come to PC platforms. And with Final Fantasy XVI, that time was cut significantly, coming out in only a year and 3 months. And now with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it's only taking a little under a year to come out, coming out in only 10 months after its initial release date. You honestly love to see it. But naturally, a lot of things are going to be improved here to give us the definitive version of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This information comes from the Square Enix site, and it goes over a lot of the improvements and features that are going to be implemented here to really improve what, the PS5 really couldn't handle with Rebirth. First off, lighting has been adjusted and the game's overall rendering of light is significantly improved. The updated areas and cutscenes present with even greater beauty and clarity than before. Obviously, when you look at the original PS5 version, the lighting was not up to snuff. Compare that to the lighting of Final Fantasy XVI and it was definitely underwhelming. And with the PS5 Pro, the visual quality all around was very much improved. But I imagine this PC version is just going to step that up to another level, and I really hope so. When it comes to frame rate and resolution, NVIDIA DLSS support means that frame rates can be enhanced and image quality upscaled. There is now also support for variable refresh rate. And now again, with the original version, frame rate and resolution was also a problem when it came to, the different modes that you can choose when it came to the settings. You had performance and quality mode, and at least for me, performance mode that I usually play on was absolutely unplayable for me. So DLSS support is something that is welcome. It's something that I think that Rebirth especially needs to have, so this is really good to see. They also go over textures, and it says here, the level of detail for background models and MIP maps for background textures can both be freely configured in the option settings. And if you don't know what MIP stands for, it's pretty much a game development technique that improves rendering performance. Moving forward, it says with this background polygon density and texture density can be set higher than was previously possible, allowing for gameplay with higher quality graphics. Now, we know that both Remake and Rebirth both had their texture quality problems, and a lot of people really going out of their way to find some rocks to complain about, which was definitely a time. But they weren't necessarily wrong in the fact that, these games have texture problems that unfortunately don't look to be getting any better with sequels. Now, the textures in Rebirth weren't really a big issue in comparison to all of the other problems that the game had, technically speaking. So, getting to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth 10 months ago was a magical experience, definitely the best JRPG I've played this year. For me personally, one of the best Final Fantasy games ever created. I think it's the perfect mesh that really complements Final Fantasy of old while providing a very modern take on the Final Fantasy formula. I think it's the perfect balance, especially when it comes to the amazing world map that they somehow managed to create here. All is to say, Rebirth was an amazing game, and I cannot wait for more players to finally get the chance to play this on the PC. Also, here are the spec requirements for the game on PC, and for what's recommended and to play on high settings are definitely a little high, but that's also to be expected with how big of a game Rebirth really is. So make sure that those PC rigs are upgraded and you are ready to play this amazing game come January 23rd, 2025. So that is pretty much the Final Fantasy news we got at the Game Awards this week, and although it wasn't anything like a Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered or a Final Fantasy IX Remake, because obviously that was gonna happen, we still got some really nice surprises in Final Fantasy XVI's Clive Rosfield finally coming to Tekken 8, which I honestly found really cool, and of course, also surprisingly, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming to PC really soon. We're just under a month until it finally releases. So tell me how you guys feel down below. How do you feel about Clive Rosfield being in Tekken 8? Are you looking forward to playing as Clive, or are you one of those people that was just kind of disappointed? And let me know, are you getting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on the PC? Are you someone who is double dipping or getting the game for the first time ever? Let me know all of that down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one.